Yeah, this is working for you. Okay. It's so hard, right? You never know if you're saying the right thing. So I'm just speaking from my heart and hopefully that works.
The Audacity of She. Incisive conversations with women who are challenging the status quo to create wildly fulfilling lives. Plus, practical information you can apply to your life right now. What are the most important things we can be doing as women right now? What can you do to create change in a system or in your own life? How do you set the stage for your long-term vision? What is the power of one voice? How do you stand in your power? Tara Cook-Littman, former New York prosecutor turned good food advocate and mom, shares her perspective in this episode of The Audacity of She. Check it out, and I'll see you on the other side. Tara, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on, Dana.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you could join us today. I connected with you years ago, and it's been really fun watching just some of the things you've accomplished. So I'm happy that you're joining us to kind of talk about that.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. Well, we've definitely been in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. Even from like different parts of the country.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're living in Connecticut, but let's start back a few years ago. Well, maybe you were living in Connecticut then too. So we'll dive into it here though. Years ago, you're in New York City and you're working as a prosecutor. So tell us, what were those days like? Did you have your family at the time? And how was life working? And then how did you decide that it wasn't working for you anymore?
Sure. So I was a New York City prosecutor for a couple of years, and it was actually 14 and a half years ago already that I was in that world. It was before I had my family, no children. I was married, but no family at the time, and I loved it. It was a really incredible job in that it toughened me up. It taught me a lot of skills that I'm still using today. When you have to walk into a New York City courtroom and speak off the cuff and make arguments in front of a packed courtroom and in front of a tough New York City criminal judge, after that, you can pretty much walk into any room and speak publicly. So I think that that has really helped me, especially with my advocacy work today, because I really have no fear in
Mm.
terms of getting out there into the public. And I probably would have continued on as a prosecutor. I stopped because I started my family. And unfortunately, at that time, being a full time prosecutor and raising a family would have been very difficult for me. And I made the very difficult decision, as so many women do, to put my career on the back burner so that I could raise my family. And I now have three children who are 14, 12, and 10.
Wow. Okay. And then at some point in time, you decided that the food that we're eating and what we're doing with our land and our bodies was a passion for you. So how did that transition happen?
So we moved up to Connecticut once my second child was born. And at that time, I actually started to not feel very well. And there was no explanation. I would consult doctors, pretty much every specialist under the sun, to try to figure out why I was having all of these symptoms. And each doctor would look at the symptom and want to treat me with a corresponding pharmaceutical drug. But something deep inside me said that was not the path I wanted to go down. So I started doing a ton of research for myself. And all the signs were pointing toward the food we eat, our stress levels, and our exercise. And I thought I was living a pretty healthy life, but not healthy enough. And I was a calorie counter, so I ate a lot of processed foods. I really had fallen victim to the marketing that we hear, and especially back in the 90s about low fat. And so I had been living a very low calorie diet, but it was also really low in nutrients and vitamins. So I completely changed my diet, felt better, and wanted to share it with the world and got my certification as a holistic health counselor.
Mm.
And that was sort of the beginning of it for me. During this program, they asked us to write out what our 5-year and our 10-year plan was. And I actually wrote down these exact words. I wrote down that I wanted to combine my advocacy skills and as attorney with my passion for health and wellness and impact food policy in America.
Mm.
So that is what I ended up doing. I thought it was going to be my 5 or 10-year plan, but it really ended up being the 1-year plan because
Wow.
as soon as I put that out into the universe, I started meeting other people that were food activists and surely ended up right in the middle of it in Connecticut to get our GMO labeling bill passed.
Okay, so now we're on to GMOs. Tell us in a really short, simple way, what are GMOs and why did you want them labeled in your state?
So GMOs, also known as genetically modified organisms or genetically engineered ingredients, are basically in most of our processed food, but it's created by taking the DNA from one species and inserting it into the DNA of another species. And I really don't want to get too scientific about it because really my problem with GMOs is that they have not been tested adequately. The majority of this testing has been done by the very industry that benefits from the sale of GMOs. And there are just too many examples in our country's history where our government and the industry tells us that something is safe, only to later learn that it's in fact quite dangerous for our health. And you
Hmm.
really don't have to look that far to find examples. Uh, Trans fats is actually one example. The FDA had said they were completely safe, and not that long ago came out and actually said, "Oh, we were wrong. Trans fats are unhealthy." Even cigarettes are an example. So for me, I was very concerned that they hadn't been adequately tested, and I didn't want my children consuming GMOs. I learned that 64 countries label GMOs, but our country does not. So when I would shop for my family, it was really difficult to figure out what products contain GMOs and what products did not. So I believe that they should be labeled so that we can all choose for ourselves what to feed ourselves and our families.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then now you led the GMO free Connecticut campaign, which went on to be the first state to label GMOs. So how does that accomplishment fuel this objective? Because I'll say that I wasn't very attentive. We just tend to buy organic in my household. But the other day we had an iced tea in the house and my guy was drinking it and he said, "Oh, yeah, I don't know. It wasn't making my body feel great." So I went to go look at the ingredients and then I saw this little label that said that it was made with genetic engineering. And I thought, oh, well, Tara had something to do with that. So tell us how that work has accomplished this objective that you set out to accomplish.
Sure. Well, it was really a two-step process in that first I was solely focused on Connecticut and getting a law passed there. And we did pass the law in Connecticut. However, it had what we call the trigger clause, in that Connecticut's law would not implement until other states in the Northeast region would also pass similar laws. So when our law passed, I knew that my work was not done. And that was when I formed a second organization called Citizens for GMO Labeling, which was a national organization meant to help other states accomplish what Connecticut did. And we were actually quite successful in getting other states to have very good campaigns. Vermont actually passed a law, and Vermont's law implemented, and they started labeling. And that's actually why you'll still see certain products that have the made with genetic engineering label on them. Unfortunately, the federal government preempted Connecticut and Vermont from ever moving forward with their law.
Mm.
Fortunately, some companies have decided that they're going to continue labeling anyway, and that's what you're seeing when you see your tea. Or I know that M&Ms have been labeled. There have been other products. Doritos, I believe, have been labeled, and these companies have not changed the label. So you can still find some products that say made with genetic engineering. The problem is it's very confusing for consumers right now because not all products are labeled.
So then maybe people could think that if a product is not labeled, that it's not made with GMOs.
Correct. And that's just not the case right now. The federal government is currently reviewing their law and trying to come up with some guidelines for what should be labeled and how it should be labeled. But the law that passed at the federal level was completely unacceptable, in our opinion, and gave companies the option of labeling potentially with websites or 800 numbers or QR codes that you have to scan and then first go to a website to see what it's even saying about whether it contains GMOs or not. And I tried to make the argument that moms, busy moms shopping in the supermarket, the last thing they have time to do is pull out their phone, scan a QR code, and start reading a website to figure out what's in products. We needed it right on the website. So what the federal government ultimately comes out with is going to be a far cry from what we were trying to achieve with GMO labeling.
So what are your goals with labeling? Are you still hoping to accomplish that initial objective, or have you shifted your focus with the outcome you'd like?
Well, I've definitely shifted my focus, but first I just want to say that I have not given up on having real GMO labeling someday. Right now, strategically, it's just not the right time to try to go back and change the law that passed at the federal government because of the current administration and just the makeup of Congress. It's just not the right timing. However, I do believe that down the road, there will be a time that we can go back and change the law and ultimately have real transparency in our food system. Just right now doesn't feel like the right time or the right place to be putting our energy, because we want to be strategic and smart about it. But I'm far from giving up.
Cool. Okay. So now when you were in this movement and you're doing this day-to-day thing, leading a huge grassroots effort, what helped you to stay with it when it was really hard? Because it wasn't it seemed like a really uphill, kind of impossible task to be taking on such huge groups, such huge businesses with so much funding and lobbyists and so much ammo to use against the grassroots people. So how did you stay with it?
So yes, it is a monstrous task for anyone looking to take on a big industry, whether it's big food and big ag like we took on, or the pharmaceutical industry, or whatever industry somebody is trying to take on. It's a monstrous task. And that is why grassroots efforts are so critically important, because it's the counterbalance to what's happening with our government right now and the corporate takeover of our democracy. People and our voices are the only thing that's going to make a difference. So with that said, though, there were definitely times where it would have been easier to throw up my hands and quit and just go back to being a mom. What kept me in it were really two things. First of all, the people that I was working with. I was far from a one-woman show. This was a monstrous effort by so many people, incredible leaders and dedicated activists. And they kept me in it because we were in it together. And the other thing that kept me going was my family. I was doing this for my children, for their future, for all of our children, and for future generations that quite honestly we'll never know. I felt that we had an obligation, and still do have an obligation, to the younger generations to leave the world better than we found it. And so that vision of wanting to leave a better world and protect the younger generations is the other thing that kept me going. And of course, my family was incredibly supportive, and they had to make sacrifices and spent less time with me and had me less available to them. But they were incredibly supportive and in it with me as well. My kids definitely know how to attend a rally and chant and make signs, and they understand all of that. So hopefully I'm creating future activists of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And now recently, you've run for office a couple of times that I've seen on social media. So what are your goals with the work you're doing now?
Yes, so I have run for office, and I would encourage everyone, especially women, to get in there and run for office, even if you don't have a chance of winning. And I did lose both elections that I've run in. I would say that I'm a fairly progressive person, and I live in a pretty conservative district. So back in 2014, I ran for state representative for the 134th district in Connecticut. And it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. I met so many amazing people, and it would have been a true privilege to represent them. Unfortunately, I lost by 500 or so votes, which was a pretty small margin. I knocked thousands of doors for that election and definitely gave it my best effort. But I would say that running for office has also helped me in my advocacy world, because when you run for office and you meet so many people, you build your troops to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. And also other elected officials then have gotten to know you in a different way, and they see that you're willing to put yourself out there. And so I developed relationships with elected officials that I don't think I ever would have had I not run for office. And then more recently, I ran for our local RTM, which is the equivalent of a town council, again in the same district. And to be completely honest, I did not have the bandwidth at this time that I did back in 2014. So I really did not knock doors, and I didn't put in the effort I really would have needed to have a true shot at running. I ran because I didn't want the incumbents to run unopposed. I think that should never happen. So I put my name on the ballot more so that the other side wouldn't run unopposed and we could fill the ticket with amazing women, which we did. And I have no regrets that I ran at that time either. I really think that if you're interested, you should run. And if you're not running, then you should support candidates who share your values with you.
Okay, I dig it. And so coming back to the grassroots aspect, now you're currently writing a book about grassroots action and how to follow your passion and turn it into accomplishing something. So tell us a bit about that.
Yes, so I'm writing a book about grassroots and building an organization and a campaign to get legislation passed and to be a more effective advocate. Also, to be an advocate for the long term, right? A lot of us come in as activists and we throw ourselves in, and we can only sustain that for the short term because we're so all in. We're not taking care of ourselves, and we're not thinking about long term goals. We're thinking about short term, let's get in and let's get out. And I think that in many ways, that's what's kind of happened to the GMO labeling activists right now. They were so all in for so long for that one purpose. And then when it came crashing down on us, when the federal government preempted the states and passed the law that none of us could get behind, I think we lost a lot of steam. So this book is about how to build grassroots capacity for the long term, and also how to take care of yourself and how to make sure that you're following your passion when you actually do this. Because if we each follow our passion, I believe the greater good is served. Right now, with the current climate, I know that there's so many issues that people would like to be working on, and we can certainly each support each other in our work. But I would suggest that if you can figure out which issue moves you the most and you put the majority of your energy there, you'll be more fulfilled and you'll also be more successful. Because when you spread yourself too thin over too many issues, you just can't accomplish that much. There's no way to lead on several issues. So lead on the issue that makes you light up within and shines your light to the world. That's when you'll be successful. I should mention I have a really amazing co-author for this book. Her name is Lori Moskowitz, and she is the campaign director for Bono's One campaign, which is an organization in DC. So it's a real pleasure working with her, and I'm thrilled that we'll hopefully be getting the book out by spring or summer. Writing a book is a monstrous task in and of itself. So fitting it into my already very busy life can be tricky, but I've learned so much over the years, and I really want to share what I've learned to help empower others to take action.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you're also getting into or currently working doing political and advocacy consulting. Tell us what
Yes.
that looks like for you.
So in a funny way, I've already been doing it for 5 years while I've been doing this work, because I get calls from folks all the time. I know you did this GMO labeling campaign. Can you help me? I want to work on this issue. And I'll walk them through the steps that we took. And folks know they can call me anytime for advice on anything ranging from how to have a rally to how do I schedule a meeting with my legislator and what do I do once I get there? So I've already been doing it. This is really me taking it to the next level and professionalizing it and valuing what I have to bring to this arena. And it's really hard. I find it's especially hard for women. And Dana, I don't know if you've experienced this, but in being a volunteer for so long, it's hard for me to now say, actually, I'm a professional. I'm an attorney. I have 5 years of experience, and I actually deserve to be somewhat compensated. And even in saying this out loud to you, it makes me uncomfortable. And I do think that it's somewhat of a female trait that we doubt ourselves, that we minimize our impact and our worth. So I'm trying to take a really big step for myself. And I'm hoping that this will help other women see their value and put it out there that I am a professional. And I've been doing this for quite a long time for free. And I don't have to make a lot of money, but I am going to start placing a value on what I bring to the table. And not just on the advocacy side, but also on the political side. I've been running campaigns in my town, ran my own campaign, and all of that for no money. But it's time for me to get in the game and let folks know that I have a real value to bring. I'm sure you can tell my discomfort with this. And again, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I know a lot of women around me experience this same self-doubt and inability to put their stake in the ground and stand in their own power and say, yes, I'm good at this and I can do this.
Yeah, that's so tricky. Yes, in part because we spend a lot of time volunteering for the things that we believe in. And yes, because we're women and we naturally nurture and feel the need to just give of ourselves to everyone. It makes it tricky to do. So I applaud you for stepping into that because it is really important for us to have an energy exchange so that we don't just end up depleted, but that we can sustain the work that we're doing. And I'm in a similar place too with the work that I do, where I try to find a way to make it easily accessible so that it can actually change lives and have the impact that I want it to have, but also sustain me and my family and, some of my personal goals as well. So it is an interesting balance to strike.
Thank you for sharing that, because I did have a sense that you might be in that similar area of self-discovery and shifting and moving things forward. And yes, because we're such givers. And of course, I'm sure you're going to continue giving part of yourself and your time in volunteer ways, as will I. It's just another way for me to have an impact. And I'm not looking to make a lot of money, but I like the way you put it. You said something about energy, a shifting of energy, or a sharing of energy that I think is really important for women as we move forward and start to feel more empowered in many different spaces.
Yeah, and I think it's also empowering as women when we can put our money toward the things that we believe in and toward the things that are important for us. So by women having the courage to step up and charge what they're worth, then we also allow other women to step up and invest in themselves in a meaningful way.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So tell me then, Tara, what advice do you have for women who are interested in changing the system or changing their lives in some way, but they don't have any idea where to start?
Right. Well, I just want to first share that I really had no idea where to start either. I was just following my instincts. So the first thing that I would say is follow your instincts, because oftentimes our instincts really are giving us direction, and we just need to trust ourselves enough to listen. So first of all, follow your instincts. And then secondly, really drill down and figure out what your passion is. I can't stress enough how important I believe that is, because passion fuels us. And if you don't have the passion, then you will peter out. So figure out where you most want to spend your time. And usually, like I shared, it's because of a personal experience, or it might be a experience that a loved one had, or it might be as simple as a news article that sparked your interest and you are drawn to that issue. But think about where you want to put your energy. And then third, I would say, start to find people that you are aligned with, because again, nobody can change the world alone. And creating a team of people that you're aligned with, that believe in what you believe in, is one of the most important and critical steps that I took. So find ways to meet people that are with you. And it can be as simple as showing up at an organization's event, or because of today's world, it's so easy to meet people online in through social media channels. Find the people that you can work with, because that will be critical for your support and also for accomplishing things. There is a saying, and I'm sure I'm going to get it wrong, that a movement really begins when with the first person who decides to follow the leader. And that's true. You don't have a leader or a movement unless you have more people that are willing to engage and follow your lead. So connect with people. And then just believe in yourself. Believe in yourself and stand in your power. And I'm certainly happy to talk about some of the details of the things that we did to make this happen. But those are the broad picture things to focus on. Connect with people, believe in yourself, follow your intuition.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Okay, I think on that note, we will take a break. And when we come back, I would love to hear a book you recommend right now.
Great.
This segment is brought to you by Audible. For you, my friends and listeners of The Audacity of She, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial so you can check out their service for yourself. I've used Audible consistently month over month to have access to all of my favorite books. To see my recommended list and start your free trial, visit theaudacityofshe.com/books. Again, that's theaudacityofshe.com/books. Okay, and we are back. Tara, I am so curious to know, what is a book that you recommend that all women read for their personal development?
Well, does it have to be one?
You can do more than one if you're inclined.
So I'm going to make 3 suggestions, only because the 3 suggestions, I think, kind of cover different areas that women should be thinking about right now. So the first book that I have to share, because it had such a huge impact on my ability to move forward in the food fight that I engaged in, is Appetite for Profit, which is written by Michelle Simon. And it talked about how the food industry is undermining our health. So I only suggest this one for folks who feel like food is their passion. And of course, I'm always wanting to get more people involved in the food movement. So that would be the first book that I would recommend if you're interested in getting into the food fight. Another book I would recommend is Miracles Now by Gabrielle Bernstein. And this is the 108 life-changing tools for less stress, more flow, and finding your true purpose. And I'm really not the type of person that can sit for 30 minutes and meditate. I actually tell people all the time, find your version of meditation, right? My version of meditation is going for a 30-minute jog, or sitting in my kitchen and preparing a creative meal for my family with music playing. That's when my mind can kind of let everything else go and get in touch with the inner me. So don't feel like you have to just sit and meditate. And the thing that I love about this book, Miracles Now, is that, first of all, it's a very easy read, because it literally has 108 little snippets and advice on how to meditate, but how to tap into yourself and find your purpose. So I could not recommend this book more. And I've seen Gabrielle Bernstein speak. I don't know if you've heard of her or
absolutely.
ever. Yeah, she's just fantastic. So Miracles Now by Gabrielle Bernstein, really easy read, and something you can go back to at any time, and even just flip open to like Miracle Message number 52. I have the book right in front of me right now. I can find peace in every breath, right? So if you ever just need a little tune-up, it's a type of book to keep around and you can just go back to it. And then the third book I'm going to recommend is very timely, and it might be a little controversial for some of your listeners, but I really do feel like I need to share it. So, and I haven't finished it, but I'm in the middle of reading Hillary Clinton's book, What Happened? And for me, it's a really important read because I'm still healing from the 2016 election. And so I've read other books about the election, but this one is really speaking to me personally, because she lost, and I went through an election and I lost. And while her loss is at such a bigger level than mine was, it's been really cathartic to see that some of the emotions she has gone through were the same emotions I went through when I lost. But the real reason I'm enjoying this book is because her voice is so strong, and women need to be finding their voices. And I question whether Hillary Clinton found her voice on the campaign trail. It is certainly much clearer and stronger in the book than it was on the campaign trail. And I think that because her voice is so strong in that book, it might help other women find their voice. And really, she isn't just talking about the campaign in this book. She's talking about the struggle of women to find their voice, and the struggle that women have simply with going through their life and being respected, and sometimes how being a woman can hurt us and how we can try to turn that around. So I would really recommend the book What Happened by Hillary Clinton to anyone interested in learning about the 2016 election, but also delving deeper into the plight of women today in modern terms, because while we all think we've come so far, we still have so far to go.
Yeah. So tell me what that means to you, that we have so far to go.
Well, I'm just going to use an example. So last night I went to to two different political events. One was a political event to support candidates running in Connecticut. And I walked in and it was a sea of men. And I felt so uncomfortable. I shouldn't, right? I tell everyone stand in your power. I should have stood in my power and felt confident being in that sea of men. But it still very much felt like a man's world. And, this is the leadership of the Connecticut House Democrats. And you would think that the leadership of House Democrats in a progressive state like Connecticut should have a few more women in the room. And they didn't. Then I went to a second political event for a new organization that was founded by women. It's called politicact.org. And the energy in the room could not have been more different. First of all, it was majority women versus majority men. So I immediately was at ease just being with women versus, feeling like I was the sole woman in the room. But they talked about the fact that this organization was created because even in progressive Connecticut, we can't pass family medical leave. We can't pass pro-choice legislation to protect women's choices. We can't pass minimum wage legislation. So, there's all of these issues that we really have a lot more to do. And our lieutenant governor is actually a woman, Nancy Wyman. She's incredible. I have so much respect for her. She's been in this for such a long time. And she even said she's concerned not only aren't we moving forward right now, she's concerned that we might be slipping backward.
So how do we change that?
Well, we get more women in office, right? If in Connecticut, I think it's only 30% women in our state legislature. If we had 50% women or more, which is representative of Connecticut, then we'd have an easier time passing legislation that is pro-family, that is pro-women. So I think one of the most important things that we can be doing as women right now is running ourselves, like I said already, or supporting other women who are willing to run and get women elected. Because of course, right, it makes sense. If we're not 50% of the elected officials, it's going to be more difficult to pass legislation that is family and women friendly. So we need women elected. And then we need women to engage. This is not my saying. It's a saying that's out there. Democracy is not a spectator sport. We cannot sit on the sidelines anymore. And even today, even after the 2016 presidential election, too many people are taking our rights for granted. You have to engage. You can't just show up on election day and vote and think that's enough. Again, you have to support candidates that are aligned with your values, and you have to fight for the issues that you believe in. Pick up that phone, call your legislators, get other people involved. And we can't just be armchair activists. You really have to show up and engage and join organizations and be willing to put yourself out there and take leadership roles.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where I'm not as actively involved in politics as I was when I was doing GMO labeling volunteering in my state. But it's my concern that just across the board that women are not standing up and speaking up for what matters most to them in their worlds and in their lives and in their hearts and their families. And that we have a lot of reasons why things aren't working out the way we'd like them to, but I don't see enough accountability and action. So I really love your ideas for women to just speak up, even if it's scary.
And it is scary. It's scary to speak up. It really
Mm-hmm.
is. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to lie. And you will be attacked. I was attacked when I ran for state representative. I was attacked, during the GMO labeling fight. My kids have actually Googled me before and come up with articles that paint me as a crazy person. It's
Aw.
actually laughable. We laugh when we read them. Um, my daughters and my son completely understands why that happens, but prepare yourself for that. But then try to be fearless and walk through the fire with me because we have no choice.
Yeah.
So again, I just say stand in your power and know that you're fighting for something much bigger than yourself. And, as long as you're grounded in something that's real, you won't lose your way. So
Mm.
just know that the universe has your back and folks that are aligned with you have your back. And so don't let fear prevent you from stepping out into the light and standing in your power and trying to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll never know how supported you are until you step out.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, Tara, that's so perfect. I don't have anything else to cover. I think that was so great. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I would just say thank you, Dana. And, thank you for doing this and getting women's voices out there, because I know that when I hear other women speak, it makes me feel more empowered. So the more we get out there to speak as individuals, the more we will feel a collective power to make a change.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then so for women who want to connect with you, whether it's regarding health or the food we're eating or politics or grassroots efforts, how can they connect with you?
Well, really simply, you can email me at taracook.littman@gmail.com. I'm available to anyone. And then I'm also coming out with a new website within a couple of weeks, www.taracook.littman.com. So just look for my name and you'll be able to find me.
Okay, great. And we'll leave links there in the show notes. Tara, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Dana.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye bye. Did today's topic inspire you, encourage you, or challenge you to look at your own processes in a different way? Join us in our Facebook group to continue the conversation. It's where all the good stuff happens after the show. It's the Audacity